All right, Hector, it's Tuesday, so I guess it's time for another Working the Web to Win. You know, we've been doing this for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, you and I have been working the web to win, each of us for about 20 years.
Yeah. The combined experience of both of us is over actually 40 years.
Yeah, but I mean, each one of us has been working this thing since the mid-90s. And I can still remember a time way back when search engine ranking was basically the be-all, end-all of internet marketing, mainly because that's really all you had was your website and the search engines, right? And can you remember back before 2000 when you could generate a page one ranking on a bunch of different search engines with colorful names like Lycos and Hotbot and Alta Vista and Look Smart?
Yeah, and there was like 100 of them.
And it took about a day to get on them.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're not in Kansas anymore, because today it can take an average of 3 to 6 months to generate a page one result on Google, and it's not all just a result of your on-site SEO. In fact, that's only a very small part of the equation. So today, now you have to go through this entire process of social networking and blogging and videos and podcasts. So is there any, reason why 95% of small businesses are not on page one?
I would say it's probably more like 99.9% of not just small business, all businesses.
Right, it's true. I mean, because it's like I said, it's a very arduous process, and if you don't have the manpower and the staying power to feed that 800-pound gorilla in the room, then guess what? You're not going to get fed.
Right. And the real question of today is that important?
Right.
Is it important that you're not on page one of Google, which is 80% of search?
In fact, what our episode is really called is, does search engine ranking really matter?
Yeah.
Okay, now before we actually get into that subject, what I want to do is allow you to introduce both our sponsors and our call-in number, which most definitely does matter.
Yeah. So let me give the call-in number first. For our guests out there in cyber world, it's 213-943-3808. That's 213-943-3808. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, and of course now YouTube, and workingthewebtowin.com. Or you'll also find our sponsors on there. Tub King is the first one I want to talk about. They sell customizable bathtubs and accessories featuring elegant slipper tubs and the highly therapeutic walk-in tubs.
Yeah, it's kind of like a high-tech bathtub, those walk-in tubs.
And then on top of that, we have MedMaster, which is the premier online job hunt board and social network community for healthcare and medical professionals.
That's right. So we're always on the cutting edge, even with our sponsors.
Yeah.
And speaking of the cutting edge, let's talk a little bit about the nature of the beast. Because I know that, we're talking about the fact, does search engine ranking matter? Well, what the heck is it? I mean, Google really won't tell you what it's all about. Yeah. They kind of hint at it, but they'll never tell you because they're afraid that you're going to be able to dominate the search engine ranking.
And neither does Yahoo and Bing, to be fair,
right.
To Google. I mean, they all keep this pretty hush-hush stuff. I always tell people, look, if you're going to start with this, you really have to start from a different perspective. You don't start with what is Google doing and what is Yahoo doing and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You really need to understand what are you doing really well. And if you understand what you're doing really well, that's really, really where you want to start. The first thing we ask our customers is, what is your unique selling proposition? What makes you unique? Why would I buy from you from anybody else?
Well, and also ultimately, what is it that you want this website to do? I mean, is it just going to be some, e-brochure? Are you looking to generate leads? Do you actually want to sell products online? Because each one of those answers requires a different solution online.
Right. And all that, it gives you different options and different tactics that you can do as far as campaigns is going. The other thing that we always ask them is, we need to know what your budget is. And a lot of times that scares people because they're afraid to show their hand.
Right.
I think you're going to gouge me for your money. But the reality is, without knowing your budget, you can't really come up with the best solution. You're going to come up with a guess solution instead of the best solution. So that budget is a very important piece. And then the last thing we always ask is, what are your skills? Because maybe they're really good at writing.
Right.
Maybe they could do the blogging themselves, or they really love Facebook and they know how to really handle that piece. They need to know what their skills are along with the talents that they have for whatever service or product that they sell. And that should be the first place they start. If they do that, they're starting off on the right foot versus trying to figure out something that they know nothing about.
Right, because the thing that you have to understand is that there are 3 must-haves when it comes to online marketing today, and that's content.
Right.
And that's where
and all kinds of different kinds of content. It's not just one kind.
And it's not just all kinds, but if you're going to have that FT and G on your your website, having it there and feeding it are two different things. You've got to be willing to feed these things in, and each one of these different content platforms requires a different amount of content. I mean, social networks, you got to do daily.
Right.
Blogging, if you're going to be in the blogging game, you got to do at least a blog a week.
Right.
Videos, you want to put at least a video on a month, or else you're really not going to get the job done. Throwing one video out there, or an occasional blog, and 6 months later, you cannot build up an audience.
Right. And the reality is, depending on how much content you're producing and how frequent you're producing it, is going to determine whether you get on page one or not, whether you get noticed. And a lot of it has to also do with, if you're providing quality content provided on a regular basis, consistently over time, that share will get you noticed, and when you get noticed, that's when you'll start going on to page one.
Well, and for some people, if they're not willing to put enough time and effort into developing the content to generating the page one result, then guess what? Don't even bother playing the game.
Right.
Because if you're going to play the game, you might as well play to win. And if you can't play to win, there are other things you could be doing with that time. Because like you said, if you're good at writing, some people really can generate as much or more traffic on a blog
Right.
than they can on their website, because guess what? The blog is constantly changing. And if you really write, what's nice about a blog is you can constantly be telling people about the changes in your business. Because once you set up your website, when are you going to really mess with it? 2-3 years down the
A
road?
good example is, say you're an author and you're trying to sell your book. You could probably get more traffic by writing additional articles on e-zines, which have credibility, and they're now telling you that you're the expert and all that kind of stuff, than you telling people, hey, come read my book is great.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also there are a number of social networks out there that deal with writers.
Right.
We're part of one called Linked Expert, which deals with people that are speakers.
Right.
So if you find the niche markets and they allow you to feed it, like what's great about Linked Expert is they allow us to post, repurpose and post our blogs on there on a weekly basis. So we've got a whole other audience that's reading our stuff.
Right.
Plus what we're doing online and what we're doing on the blogs and what we're doing on the videos, but we have decided that this is what we're going to do. In fact, that's how we ended up doing this radio show, because we said if we're going to do it, we've got to commit to it. And now we've been doing it for over 2 years.
Yeah, and I know in the blog we also talk about being on page one is not the be all to end all. The first thing is that's just sort of the beginning. So they found you.
Yeah,
you
so
still
what?
have to convert them.
Right.
I mean, and if you're not dealing with that piece, that's a problem.
Sure.
But even before you get to the finding you on page one and converting, you have to know the value of that customer. You have to know how much does it cost to buy that customer, to acquire
And
that
how much is that customer worth over the
Right.
lifetime of
and
the
how
customer?
much the first
Right.
year's value, the lifetime value, and so on. And if you know those two things, you can come up with a budget that says, here's how much I
Sure.
can spend to go after them. And then you can really evaluate,
What's the
is it
best
pay-per-click
model,
that's going
right?
to work for me, or is it going to be blogging that's going to work for me, and so
And
on.
actually, we're going to talk a little bit about pay-per-click in a little while. But before we do that, let's talk about how web design can affect search engine rankings. Because a lot of times, people will really stick their foot in it right away, mainly because a lot of the people that are hiring people to design their websites, these people aren't online marketers.
They're website builders.
They're graphic artists.
Right.
So if you see a lot of Flash, and a lot of cascading style sheets, and all these drop downs and JavaScript, guess what? The search engines hate that stuff.
Right. And on top of that, it may make the website look really fancy and pretty, but the reality is, fancy and pretty is distracting.
Right.
It distracts from the message of getting the customer to move to the next level. The website may be very impressive,
Right.
but if it's not a focused message, then the person's going to be jumping all around, and the likelihood of being distracted to something else is extremely high.
Well, like it or not, you've got 2 minutes or less to dangle the bait, hook the fish, and reel it in. All right, and if you give people too many choices, they're not going to do what you want. What you want to do is focus, laser-like, give them enough information above and fold, because guess what? They're not going to scroll, to make a buying decision, and leave it at that. The more you distract from that, the more stuff you throw in there, the weaker your result is going to
The
be.
gone are the days where people would spend a half an hour on your site
Clicking around
reading
your
all the
site. Yep,
stuff.
it's not
That's gonna
$19.99
happen,
anymore.
Right. We have so much information overload today that people's time is becoming an extremely valuable commodity, and they're just not going to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes on your site unless it's exactly what they're looking for. If it's exactly what they're looking for, they'll spend the time. But if it's not, boing, they're
Right.
going somewhere else.
Yeah. So again, that's one of the reasons why we always tell people, if you're going to build a website, if anybody's going to build a website for you, you must have video today.
Yeah.
Because first of all, people are 5 times as likely to watch a video as they are to read text. And the second thing is, and this is the most important thing, okay, because let's face it, when somebody clicks from the search engine over your website, there's a 99% probability they don't know about you. They don't know why they should be doing business with you, and they're not going to take 5 minutes to look around your website. So if you take a 90-second video, introduce them to the people behind the scene, introduce them to some of the principles that make you better than the competition, and give them a solid reason to buy, then they might.
Right. And then if you also have the testimonial video really close so they can see it above the fold, then they might click on that one, and now you're starting to gain some credibility. And then if you have your address on there and a really easy to find phone number, and you're giving all the signals and the stuff that they want, the likelihood of them jumping on and calling you or filling out a form and contacting you are much, much higher.
And the other thing is, before you even start driving the bus, you better know where it's headed. Because that's the other thing that I've even seen professionals do this, because if they're only going to set it, forget it, and walk away, they're not going to take a lot of time to research your keywords. You have to figure out the keywords that are well trafficked and have an exact correlation to what
And let's make sure our listeners understand and viewers understand. When we say keywords, we mean the search terms that people are typing in, looking for stuff. That's what keywords are. They're the search terms.
And they have to be very specific, because there's a difference between, let's say you're selling apples in Boise, Idaho, okay? Then that's what you want to have, apples, Boise, Idaho. Just having apples is not the right keyword, because if you can't sell to somebody in Poughkeepsie and they want to buy from you, plus the fact that the shorter the key term, the more competitive it's going to be. You might not want to get into that fight, because it might be a fight you can't win.
And on top of that, the market may just be too big for you to handle.
Well, you have to determine how big your market is. That's the first thing you have to do. Am I local? Am I state? Am I regional? Am I national? And each one of those answers has a different set of key terms that apply to your business. You have to know. And how do you know? You ask Google.
You ask Google. No, there are other things. There are other keyword tools. Google's tools are very good, but there are other keyword tools.
But I'm saying you have to research is what I'm saying. You can't guess. You want to find out what kind of traffic is there, and you want to find out what kind of a fight you're going to be in for that keyword.
And your name of your company is not the key term.
In fact, that's the last thing you want to have. In fact, that's another place where people make a mistake, is every time you click on a link and it just says the name of the company, name of the company, name of the company. Well, that's what the search engine is going to think your key terms are. The name of your company.
Yeah, and again, the title of the pages have to be keyword oriented.
And your image.
The heading of the pages have to be keyword oriented and so on. The content absolutely has to have the real keywords in it, and it can't be done in a way that's sort of stodgy or of poor quality. If it's not written very well, that's going to cause you all kinds of other problems. I mean, I think some of the things that I see people have, when I ask them, what is the biggest problem you have? Some people say, well, it's the creation of the information. They don't know how to write. They don't know how to do videos. They don't know how to do podcasts.
Well, we know some people that do.
Yeah, and what I tell them, I said, look, if you don't know how to do that and you have a budget, then outsource that, because then you're going to be successful if you hire professionals to do that.
But the thing is, though, you got to be very careful whom you hire and allow to promote your business, because that's the other thing that we have found out. And in fact, we've had customers come to us that literally are blacklisted because they hired somebody. If somebody says to you, I can give you an organic link on Google in a week, that's a big red flag.
Or even a month, probably. They're probably
That's a big red flag. Well, even if they're not, because there's only one way you can do that, black hat technology, of cheating the system. And while that works on the short term, once Google finds out, and believe me, they will, you may never be able to get back up there again.
The only other way to get on there very quickly is if you have some kind of unique thing that you invented, or a widget, or you're an artist and you make some special gizmos.
Not exactly. There are some ways, because we actually, in our book, Working the Web to Win, which we just published on Amazon, by the way, we talk about some shortcuts, because there are some legitimate shortcuts that can generate a page one result on Google.
And
but
they
it's not
are on
be,
this article.
That's right. But they're not going to be necessarily a long-lasting page one result. We show you how to do using videos to target page one, how to use blogs. Blogs are very good, particularly if you use Blogger, which is Google's blogging platform. We've seen socials jump on there,
especially Google Plus. It's got Google in it.
Press releases.
And press releases. All those are really great shortcuts to get on page one quickly, but generally they're
not going to last.
Short-lived.
Right, they'll be on there for a few days or maybe a week or two.
I mean, it's possible.
You can make a lot of hay in that amount of time, though, if you know what you're doing. So we don't want to say that that's not a way to do it, but those are all legitimate ways of generating pages.
And again, if they get past the issue of production, then the next issue is distribution. So they can make all this stuff happen, But now they got to get it out to thousands and thousands of people, and that's
right.
the biggest obstacle I see
Yeah.
for most people. That's
That's
why
what
we invented Teen Tech.
Well, and that's what you call having a billboard in the desert.
Right.
You know, you can have a great blog or a great video, but if nobody's watching it, nobody's reading it,
Right.
what good is it going to do you?
So if they don't have some kind of distribution platform where they can get this message out to a lot of people, like either Social Slam Dunk, which is another technology we invented,
Right.
or a search directory push, which
Right.
is another one. If they're not using some kind of technology to get distribution, then they got the best content in the world.
Right.
It's going to get there, but it's going to take a
Right.
real slow boat to China to get it up
Let
on
me
page
explain
one.
to our viewers just a little bit about what we're talking about, both our Club W Cubed and our Social Slam Dunk. What we did was we found out about a year and a half ago that Google was putting a very high premium on blogs that were being not only just read, but being commented upon and then reposted as social nets. So we very quickly started looking around there, seeing if anybody had a service that offered that, and they didn't.
Right.
So we said, well, if they don't have it, we're going to have to invent it. And what we've come up with is a peer group where literally when we and our clients, when we write blogs, they don't just lie there. What we do is we push them out to our other team members who read the blog, they comment on the blog, and then they push it out to Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. So immediately when we do a blog, we get this huge burst of distribution, and we get in front of thousands and thousands of people who otherwise wouldn't see our blog, and our other team members get the same benefit.
Right. And what's neat about it, in a very short period of time, you generate a following. So between doing that and then doing like Social Slam Dunk, where you're getting daily posts and so on, you're not only getting distribution of your unique content, you're now getting distribution and following in a bigger social net.
Right.
And what I like to say about social networking versus regular advertising, which is one of the items that we'll talk about later on the show, when you build a social net, it's like building a pond that
Right.
you can fish in over and over and over again. And if you compare that to regular advertising where it's a one and done,
Sure.
it's just a no-brainer to make sure that you incorporate that in your marketing platform.
And the other thing too about doing, if you properly optimize your blogs, is that you also have backlinks, which
Right.
are also important to the search engines.
Yeah, and again, all social posts are backlinks, video posts are backlinks, you know, podcasts are backlinks. Everything that you do, if you set them up properly and optimize them properly and link them back to wherever you
That's
want the
right.
traffic to go.
But that's where a lot of people fall off the platform because they don't realize that it's not enough to optimize your website. You've got to optimize everything. I mean, in fact, when you go on to Blogger, there are places where you can put the key terms. You can do the same thing on YouTube. But
You
most
can do
people
the
don't
same
even
thing on
realize it's
WordPress,
there.
but you know, I noticed a lot of people never put the key terms in their WordPress blogs.
I know.
Yeah, and they don't activate the commenting section or the places to push out to Twitter, Facebook, and
Right.
Google Plus.
So,
I mean,
so
it's
how
sort of
are they
like-
going to find you if you don't meet them halfway? It'd be like how many times do we see somebody with a website and there are no tags in there? They don't have any meta tags. They don't have any alt tags on their images. They don't have. There's no keyword richness in their text. I mean, so. If you don't give them at least a fighting chance to figure out what shelf to put you on, then you're going to be in the backwaters. You're
Well,
never going to get on page.
I would have to absolutely agree with that. You know, the next thing I hear people say is that it's overwhelming to try and do all this stuff. I mean, how am I going to be able to write 4 blogs a month, a video a month, do podcasts, do all these daily social posts and so on? Just the sheer number of things that people would have to do is enormous. Well, the reality is it can be a full-time job.
Yeah, but let me put it this way. What I tell people is what I call the internet. We call Google the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but I call the internet the elephant. And what's the easiest way to eat an elephant?
A little bit of...
One bite at a time. So you have to determine how many bites do you want to take
Right.
and how many bites do you want to get somebody else to take it. Because, I mean, you can either, like what we do, a lot of times, you know, we've got our staff here and we'll give some of our staff, we'll maybe write a blog or put a social post out. You can do some of that in-house, but if you don't have enough people to get the job done, figure out what it is you want to do and then find somebody that you can trust to do the rest of the work.
And this is the thing. If you decide to take that piece on, whatever it is, say it's blogging, you better do that.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to do that piece
Right.
because the pieces without each other do not exceed the sum of the parts.
Right, well, and it's just like with us with our radio show. If we decide, you know what, I don't feel like doing this radio show today.
It's going to hurt the blog.
It's going to hurt everything, you know. And it's the same thing when you're blogging. If you're going to do a blog a week, you got to do a blog a week, and you really want to post it almost on the same day every week. So this way, people get used to looking for that blog, and then you want to create newsletters once a month out of your blog post. If they miss it, you get a second bite out of that apple.
Right.
The whole point is this is touch marketing. This is a 21st century method of touch marketing. And the beauty of it is, unlike the old touch marketing where you had to spend a lot of money on printing and postage and handling, you got it easy now. So I don't understand why people are so reluctant to do the little bit of work that it takes to get this stuff in front of thousands and thousands of people that might buy stuff from you.
One of the articles I read that said that you should diversify your portfolio. That is, don't try and put all your eggs in the basket like being on page one of Google. Well, if you use our methodology, you're really automatically doing that. You're diversifying because you're in Blogger, you're in YouTube, you're in all the social nets. You're also in, hundreds of directories and so on. So you're not trying to attack this thing from a single angle, and then if you fail, you have one point of failure. Since you're in all these areas, you have to have the long-term picture because it's going to take longer to get into all these areas into any kind of significant numbers. But once you're there, it's very hard for people to push you off of your position.
Well, because if you're not willing to do the work, then really there's only one other way to get on page one. That's to buy your way in.
Right, buy your way in.
And that is an entirely different discipline, because a lot of people spend a lot of money
and they get nothing
on pay-per-click, and they get absolutely nothing because they don't understand how it works, because it's as complicated or more complicated than generating organic results.
And like I say in the blog, it could be a very effective tool for the person who really understands what they need to do and how to be able to move it up and down and so on, and to test and measure. And if they're not willing to do those things, that could be a big mistake.
And of course, the other thing that's the only real constant online is change, because how many times we just had, what was it, Google? They had Penguin before that. There was Panda and all these cute little fuzzy things that really aren't cute and fuzzy at all.
Come because bite you like Tiger Shark.
Exactly.
Oh wait, it wasn't called Tiger Shark.
Yeah, they don't call it Google Tiger Shark.
It should have been called Google Tiger Shark. In the blog there are 9 things that are other games in town that people can participate in that aren't directly Google search. So one of them is partially search, and that's what we call retargeting. You'll hear them talking about in the yellow pages and all that kind of stuff. That you're being, instead of in Google search, you're being in Google's network. And that could be a very cost-effective ad, because generally those ads run less money, and if you can get into a very highly targeted network, that could be a very cost-effective
Yahoo has something very interesting they just came out with. It's called a stream ad, where basically you can take a blog, you can turn it into an ad and steer people to your blog, but also you create a landing page. So when they get to that story, instead of just seeing the blog there, you could have your video, you could have your offer, you could have all this stuff to try to capture their attention. And right now, it's been very low cost.
Again, there are other low cost things other than just the big gorilla, and that's what I think this article is really going to help people the most. Obviously, you can do social promoting, which is essentially free to do that kind of stuff. You have to do it in a specific way. We have lots of articles on how to do that. You can do social pay-per-click. So pay-per-click is not just Google or Yahoo or Bing and so on. Social pay-per-click can be also a very cost-effective thing, especially if you couple it with some kind of thing like we're working on the scratch-off games on Facebook, where a restaurant can have some kind of loyalty program, or a retailer
offer buy one get one.
That can cost them as little as $100 a month, $200 a month, depending on how many participants they have in the program.
That's right.
So that could be a very cost-effective thing. Another thing that could be extremely cost-effective is sponsored ads. So there are lots of small networks that you can sponsor stuff, and those ads might cost you.
By the way, it looks like you got a caller.
$2-3 a Oh, let's answer this or get this puppy on the phone here. Hello, caller. You're on here live. You have to speak up. What's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
What's your name?
If I'm not on page one, can I still make money on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but you won't make money on the search engines. You'd have to use other forms of media, because 97% of the people that surf the web don't go beyond page one.
Right. But the reality is 95% of the people are on other things. So, for example, the number one accessed site in the world is Facebook.
That's right.
That's not a search engine, okay? There are lots of places that people are that aren't searching. So, for example, on Blog Talk Radio, every day, thousands and thousands of people go on Blog Talk Radio.
That's right.
So there are other places you can be. For example, our blog has about 4,500 page views a month. That's pretty high traffic. Whereas a lot of websites are only getting 300 or 400 page views a month. If they could get a page view on our site, they could have 4,000 page views.
So hope that answers your question.
Okay, so let me get back to where I was talking about sponsored ads. They can be very inexpensive. industry directories. If you're not in the top 100 industry directories, that could be a big mistake. Partnership banner ads, like on our blog or somebody else's blog or somebody else's YouTube channel or so on. There are plenty of different places you can buy in. Article marketing is sort of something that you don't hear a lot of people talking about.
Right.
But what's neat about article marketing versus blogging is that now your article is on an e-zine, an online magazine, which gives you credibility because they published your article.
Right.
And now that third-party credibility can be a big deal. So, for example, on Easy Online, when I hit 24 articles, they dubbed me an expert in my area because all my articles were about a single subject. So, being dubbed an expert by a third party can carry significant weight.
And of course, if you write enough blogs, you can do what we do, which is write a book.
Write a book, that's right. And a book is a significant way of building credibility. And again, the book is on Amazon. You can show it to people. It's a lot of different types of things.
Anyway, our producer is telling us that it's time to go to our little Worldwide Weird feature. So, and you'll like this one because I know that your son is in the Special Olympics.
Yeah.
Well, there's now going to be a competition which is called the Bionic Olympics. I'm going to play a little video here for you to see. It's kind of cool. But it's basically a...
Here it goes.
This is going to be an Olympic event for people that have bionic implants.
So like a Pretoria guy who shot his girlfriend the other day?
Yeah, well, maybe this one will let her run away faster next time. Because this is actually with robotic implants and bionic prosthetics, and they're going to actually have, this is actually going to be held in 2016 in Switzerland.
Wow. 6 disciplines. They have any like go-go gadget guys where like the legs come out and
See, they wear exoskeletons.
So they gonna have any of the boxing matches with like steel fists and stuff?
I don't know if they're going to go that far, but I mean, they're definitely going to have some interesting bionic competitions here. So anyway, that was one of the things that we had for Worldwide Weird. And then the other one, I knew you'd really appreciate this one. It says, brewing beer with your phone, print yourself, and 4G.
In Ireland.
In Ireland.
So they're using their phone to control the cooker? Is that what it looks like for the beer?
Basically what it is that they actually have a smart app that shows you how to brew beer. It controls everything. It tells you when to add the ingredients. It's basically a foolproof. I guess you could be drunk and brew beer.
It'll tell you when it's ready.
It'll do that too. Yeah, it's really set to take you from the beginning to the end. And then there's one other thing that I want to talk about because you probably noticed that Twitter just unveiled its new Facebook-like profile redesign. Right. Well, one of the things that I found which was kind of cute, it was actually on Facebook today, and I sent you this because it was one that I liked. It says, one day YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook will join together, and it's going to be called YouTwitface.
You never know when that might happen. I know we got about a minute and a half left, so we want to make sure that we take an obscene break for our sponsors here. I want to thank Tub King. They sell the customizable bathtubs and accessories, featuring the elegant slipper, double slipper tubs, and the clawfoot tubs, and highly therapeutic walk-in tubs. And of course, Medmaster, who's the premier online job board and social network for, community for healthcare and medical professionals.
That's right. And also, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing next week. Because, this week we spent time again talking about optimizing your websites. Well, next week we're going to go mobile. We're actually going to talk about mobile marketing and how there are the different platforms today that enable you to do things that really are even more dynamic than what you can do on your computer.
Well, that'll be really cool. And again, if people ignore mobile, again, we didn't even get the chance to cover all the items, but mobile is it's a totally separate market.
And it has to be optimized completely differently.
And they can be done in a bunch of different ways. Yeah. You can build an app and so on. You can do podcasting on mobile. That's very easy to do.
And we'll probably have
scratch-off games in mobile.
That's right. And we'll probably have an app developer or two on here next week.
You can even push out emails and newsletters, which we didn't get to on here. So I know we got about 30 seconds left.
That's what happens when you have a 30-minute show.
30-minute show flies by. So the reality is, organic search is not the only game in town.
No.
And if they read the article and listen to the blog, you'll listen to it a couple times, you'll find that there's a whole bunch of other games in town that we can make it. And Again, if people pay attention, they can keep
Working the web to win.